When they entered the alley, he noticed that they were still following behind them. They hide in a small place between two walls to avoid getting caught. She is uncomfortable in that place, he is more than comfortable. 𝐻𝐵, it is very small for two people. She breathed out with an annoying frown. It is a small place, so they are standing so close to each other. So close, he can feel shivers running down his spine whenever her breath touches his neck. Her bangles are pressing into his chest, but he doesn't care as long as she pressed onto him. He put his hands up like a thief to not touch her accidentally, as if he's not already making her uncomfortable. On the other hand, 𝐻𝐵 felt like she trapped between hard wall and also a hard chest, making it unbearable for her. The only thing between them was her hands. 𝐻𝐵, I can't stay like this. I wanna go out. Before she could move, he stopped her by grabbing her shoulder when he heard Jimin's voice. 𝐻𝐵, what Taehyung, shush, she kept herself silent as she heard their voices coming near to them. Funny thing is, she's the only one that is scared now, remaining three people knew the act. Poor 𝐻𝐵. They remained silent until their voices drifted away. His phone rang suddenly, breaking the silence, which made 𝐻𝐵 flinch over the sudden sound. His phone rang, shattering the silence. Panic welled up inside him as he fumbled to answer the call, his fingers trembling. In his haste, his thumb brushed against the speaker button, and suddenly, his voice filled the tiny space. Jimin, where are you? We can't find you, he said anxiously. Taehyung's heart sank as he realized the intensity of the situation as his eyes widened in sudden fear. He mentally cursed himself for picking up the call in the first place. Desperation gripped him as he tried to turn off the speaker, but the phone slipped from his grasp, fell to the floor. Jungkook, your mother's on the verge of making you a church father if you don't show up with 𝐻𝐵, you know. Try to coax her or something, he said from side. 𝐻𝐵's eyes widened as she heard every word, her anger simmering just beneath the surface. His acts became all waste in a second. Her gaze bore into him with an intensity that sent shivers down his spine. The furrowed lines on her forehead and the narrowing of her eyes revealed the depths of her anger. Her lips, usually soft and inviting, were now pressed into a thin, tight line. The rise and fall of her chest were quickened, each breath accompanied by an audible sigh of exasperation. He was trapped not just between these walls but in a web of deceit and obligation. His fear and her anger collided, setting the stage for an unstable confrontation neither of them had anticipated. Taehyung, I can explain. His voice was almost gone. 𝐻𝐵, explain what? What a cheater. She slammed her hand on his chest, hardly causing his breath to hitch in fear. She came out of that place dragging him with her. At the same time, Jimin and Jungkook came to that place with their little act. Jimin, hands up and hand over the money. He shouted, but 𝐻𝐵 looked at him up and down in annoyance. 𝐻𝐵, what is more childish is you guys acting along. She said and walked away. They looked at Taehyung. Taehyung, unable to hold back his sadness, put his head on Jimin's shoulder. Taehyung, she already knew our act, Jimin. Why is this happening to me? He let out his frustration. Jungkook, it would have been better if you had politely told her the truth before and tried to convince her, but you decided to play bad games. He said. Taehyung, I also wanted a wife like everyone to kiss me every day, but my life is too bad. I may look cool on the outside, but I'm very sensitive on the inside, he said while hugging Jungkook. Too in sadness. Jungkook, well, would you look at yourself, you're a chameleon. How dare you call me a criminal? He asked with a sarcastic grin and a raised eyebrow. Jimin, is it a time to ask him all that? Let's go, Tae, there's many fish in the sea. We'll search for another girl, he tried to convince him. Taehyung's heart sank at the well-meaning offer, but he knew he couldn't accept it. His voice was heavy with the weight of his own feelings. Taehyung, Jimin, I can't. I'm already in love with her, he said softly, breaking the hug with Jungkook. Jimin raised an eyebrow, surprised by Taehyung's response. Jungkook, bro, what the hell? Love with who? YN. Damn shit. Taehyung took a deep breath, his gaze distant as he thought of YN. Jimin's expression shifted from surprise to scolding, his voice laced with concern. Jimin, you can't fall for someone so fast. You barely know her. Taehyung's eyes filled with sadness as he defended his emotions. Taehyung, you don't understand, Jimin. There's something about YN, something that's indescribable. I've never felt this way before. I can't just move on. As the conversation continued, Taehyung's love for YN became evident through the earnestness in his voice, the way he spoke of her with a tenderness that betrayed the depth of his feelings. Despite the sadness that hung in the air, it was clear that Taehyung's heart belonged to YN and there was no turning back. After their conversation, they approached Jimin's car, and to their surprise, YN sat inside, her expression a mix of uncertainty and her lips are pouting in anger. Taehyung's heart skipped a beat at the sight of her. He hadn't expected to see her here, not after their argument. Jungkook, why she's in our car? He asked them, but they shrugged their shoulders. Jimin opened the car door and asked, Jimin, why are you still here, miss? YN glared at them. YN, drop me home, she ordered, which made him raise an eyebrow. Jimin, you're not in the place to order us. Taehyung, Jimin, please. He almost begged for her. Jimin, I'm letting you by looking at my friend's face, he said, and they sat in the car. Taehyung beside YN and Jungkook beside Jimin, who was driving the car. YN, unbelievable. How childish you guys can be to act like criminals for him. How ridiculous. I hate your acts, she said out of the blue, which made Jimin and Jungkook glare at her. Jungkook, we hate you too. You don't deserve my friend, you'll never find a nice guy like him. He replied with sarcasm. YN, if he is so good, why did so many girls rejected the marriage with him? My god. Just a handsome face isn't enough, mister. Good heart is needed. Jimin, don't talk as if you knew everything. Soon it turns into an argument. YN, I'm sufficiently aware of this guy. Don't try to defend him just because he's your friend. Jungkook, you're talking a lot. Taehyung, enough. Everyone was stunned by his scream. Taehyung, please, stop fighting over me. Jimin, if you had said okay to that last girl, we wouldn't have suffered all this today. He suggested. Jungkook, dude, she literally told him that she can't get over her ex. How can he marry her when her heart belongs to her ex? Again an argument arose. Jungkook, instead he should have ended up with that girl before her. Jimin, she is too advanced for him, bro. A beginner like Taehyung couldn't handle a pro, you know. They ended up laughing together, making YN and Taehyung look at them with frowned eyebrows. Taehyung, why did you guys went from defending me to degrading me? He asked with unpleasant mood. Jimin, fine, we'll stop. YN fell into the river of thoughts. He had his reasons to call off those weddings. Maybe he's not that bad. A bustling wedding hall is still filled with guests, all dressed in their finest attire. The atmosphere is charged with curiosity and whispers as Jimin, Taehyung and Jungkook walk in, escorting the runaway bride, YN. Heads turn and murmurs ripple through the crowd. Jimin, you sure about this stay? He whispered to Taehyung and he nodded. Taehyung, yes, we have to do this. Taehyung, watching her walking to her father, can't hide the sadness in his eyes. He's deeply in love with her, but he knows she doesn't share the same feelings. Taehyung, this marriage, it's not going to happen. YN approaches her father, who stands with her mother, both of them wearing surprised smiles. Taehyung watches YN from a distance, convinced that she's telling her parents that she doesn't want to marry him. His heart sinks as he imagines a future without her. Taehyung, she's going to break it off. I knew it. He slaps Jimin's shoulder with pout. Jimin, yeah, don't be sad. It's common in these days. Taehyung, getting heartbroken. It's not common for me. But to his surprise, 𝐻𝐵 walks over to him, her eyes sparkling with an unexpected energy. She takes his hand, and his heart races. 𝐻𝐵, we're getting married in 15 minutes. Get ready, she said with an excitement. Taehyung is stunned, unable to comprehend the sudden change in her demeanor. Taehyung, 𝐻𝐵, what's going on? I thought, he asked with confusion written on his face. 𝐻𝐵, you're such a good boy, Taehyung, with that charming childish behavior of yours. And I've learned more about your past, it's not as bad as I thought, she said while smiling at him warmly. Taehyung's heart soars with happiness and relief. He's overjoyed but still puzzled by her sudden reversal. Taehyung, you really had me worried there. But why the change of heart? He asked while grinning. She signaled him to come closer to her. 𝐻𝐵, because I realized I want to spend the rest of my life with you, she whispered in his ear. After that, his friends, Jimin and Jungkook, can't resist teasing Taehyung. Jimin, looks like your time turned out to be good, Taehyung. He grinned. Jungkook, and she just couldn't resist your charms, could she? He teased more. Taehyung's face reddens, but he couldn't be happier. Even though he couldn't process how she changed her decisions in a split second, he's okay with it as he got what he wanted. The place is filled with laughter and joy as they prepare for a wedding filled with unexpected twists and newfound love.